Hello, people. Can you hear me? Yeah, it's okay. So I'm very glad you came to my keynote. There is a great place of the venue here with great acoustics. I'm really happy to make my keynote up here. So, in fact, my keynote is not very informative. It's like chilling. So if you want to chill, we'll start. The first story of mine is about synthesizers. There was a sound designer that didn't really want to use to hear synth sounds in the game because he tried to do it, but it felt too much like a statement. Like he said, we wanted to express something by subscribing to a specific genre, but he decided to do something new, so he used a human skull. It was actually Stig Andersen from the team which made sound for Inside, Limbo, and especially this story was about Inside. So he made a recording instrument from a real human skull and some microphones, some dynamics. And there were a lot of great sounds made by this recording instrument. He also told that there were some teeth in this skull. So when the soundtrack was playing, those teeth were like, I don't know, greeting, something like this. And these sounds were vibrating. They were very interesting. And Stig Andersen thought that it will be familiar to a lot of people because we all know it in a way, you know. And here is a video with a part of this soundtrack. I hope we can hear it now. Yeah, we can. There are some scary sounds, like with some horror stuff in it. And all the soundtrack is made like this way. So let's go to the next story. Oops. I have some problems with this computer. The next story is about Tomáš Dvořák from Amanita Design. He made a lot of stuff for the Amanita games, and one of the great stories connected with him was about the bongo drum and the chupa chups. So he took the chupa chups, he licked it, and slided it onto the bongo drum. Here came the sounds for the growing mushrooms. So this is weird, but this is the Amanita Design, so it's okay. Here is the video about the characters, and here is this sound. You know, Tomáš Dvořák is a very creative person. We can see it. The next story is about 2 weeks of dialogues. You know, there is a well-known, world-known actually game where there are 3,030 hours of dialogues. Because there are 7 languages and like 48 like these hours of dialogues into every language. So there is Witcher Wild Hunt. It's about it. Because the game is plot-based, there are a lot of characters, and all those characters are talking something. It's not made like in Zelda Breath of the Wild, in a way of economy, but it was it was just a giant work. The next story is about giant mechs. Yeah. A team of sound designers needed to make up the sounds for giant mechs. So they refused to think small and decided to use the giant metallic containers and a crane to drop one container to another. It was like this. This is the real photo from the recording session for Titanfall, the second. Here you can see the containers, the crane, and the sound designer, the artist who recorded all this stuff. And here we have the video about this.
My core offline.
It's very loud there.
Laser core activated.
If you know, in this game we are sitting inside of giant mechanic robots, human-like, and we are just having some battles with other people. When we are sitting here, there are giant mechs, giant weapon, and so on. And this game is really epic, so it needed some epic sounds to be recorded for this. The next story is about professional imitation. Are there any sound designers or composers in this room today? Okay, we have two sound designers, it's great. Okay, every game audio specialist gets into situations when a customer doesn't like some particular instrument. For example, like accordion is rural, or just French. Saxophone is something from romantic collection, and some ethnic flutes are sounding like wounded animals, you know. Here the situation was the opposite. The composer hated orchestral brass. I just don't know the reason, because orchestral brass is sounding great. But he luckily replaced it with woodwinds for no reason, and it began to sound like a real orchestral brass. So we can hear it in the soundtrack for the Order 1886. We can hear the real brass, but there is no actual brass. By the way, the soundtrack is I think it's marvelous, and it fits the game very much, and I love this game. The first part of it just was released some years ago, and then there had to be another part, but there wasn't. I don't know why. The next story is about a world-known composer who was asked by the developer not to use any guitars. The developer was like, "I'm tired of those electric guitars," he said. "You can do anything, but please don't use them." Any ideas here what instrument became the leading in the soundtrack? Yeah, Alina is actually saying the truth, because the electric guitar became the pivot of the Doom soundtrack. It was Mick, very handsome man, you know, who made this awesome soundtrack. He also used a special plugin with the help of which he just drew some pentagrams and numbers in the soundtrack, in the spectrogram of the soundtrack. And this Easter egg was actually found by the players. But there was an additional Easter egg connected with the phrase "Jesus loves you." It was reversed. There were some effects on it, but no one found it. So Mick Gordon had to tell about this in the interview. and he was just disappointed of his fans. Yeah. The next story is about a very, very old car. There was a team of sound designers, of audio recording specialists, who had to record some cars for the game, because the mechanic of driving the cars was one of the most important in the game. So they also decided to make some efficient work. So they took the actual cars of the American 40s and 50s, and one car was from the 30s. You know, as it was very ancient, its cooling system was also ancient. So they had to record the sound for only 12 seconds, then wait for 10 minutes, then record the sound for 12 seconds, wait for 10 minutes, and so on. It was an amazing sounding vehicle, but it didn't handle the heat very well. So they recorded it, and if you cope with this mechanic in the game when you are driving the car, it is always more than 12 seconds when you are in this process. So they had to spend some days recording this special car. Oh, this is one of my favorite stories. Now imagine Bolivia jungle, 5 a.m., a night after a very long recording session. A team of sound designers is sleeping in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in the cabin in the woods. There is 5 a.m. and here come the two cons. There are some large birds which begin to scream. They literally are screaming. What does the normal person do in such a situation? Yeah, they just take the earplugs, plug them in, and sleep till, I don't know, till afternoon. But what does the sound designer do? The sound designer takes his appliances and goes for another recording session. So it is a story about Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, and this team of the sound designers actually recorded those two cons, and this sound became one of the most sufficient in the game, and it was really great. It's kind of a new story in my keynote about natural musical instruments. It's not about the cat piano. The cat piano is actually imaginary musical instrument. If you want to know something more, there is a film made by Nick Cave, and it's very weird but great.